Welcome to our weekly software supply chain security group meeting. I had just a couple small items, probably won't take the whole time that I wanted to talk through. The first one was we recently moved some people around and created a new authorization group. And so as part of that, we're reducing the staffing on the software supply chain security working group quite a bit. So I just wanted to share a little bit more on my thoughts and some commentary around that. Biggest reason is just because we appear to be blocked in several areas, right? We don't have a 6-store Ruby library, so we're really blocked on the verification side. We do have some collaboration planned with the runner team in 16.6 to try to see how we can start doing signing inside of the runner, but there's no real clear engineering path forward there at the moment. Of course, that could change depending on the collaboration there. But that's blocked. And then of course, we're also blocked on self-managed support for signing with cosign, since there's not good documentation on how to stand up the SIG-store stack in a self-managed environment. And so all in all, just across the board, as we look at our roadmap, it doesn't really make sense to have everyone on this. We are planning to keep one person. I think, Aaron, it was you, right? I actually didn't see where everything landed. Are you going to still be working on the software supply chain security working group?
I think Nate and I talked about this last week, and I remember that was what we came to.
Okay. I think that's my understanding as well, although depending on the workload, you might end up working on compliance stuff, as things fluctuate up or down. But yeah, we'll still have you stay on the working group then, I guess, just to keep things moving along, because we are blocked, but we still want to make sure somebody is working on unblocking things to the extent that we can within GitLab. Obviously, some of these blockers are outside of our control, but when and where we can keep them moving, that'll be the main priority moving forward for the one person working group. And then if those blockers are ever unblocked, then we'll have a discussion about how do we staff it back up, or actually start to work on some of those outstanding items. Okay, any questions about that? So that being said, I guess point number 2 is just a question. I've been out for the last week. Where are we at in finishing the engineering work? And this is why I was trying to see if we could pull things into 16.5 a little bit earlier rather than later, was just because I knew changes were coming and wanted to free people up to go work on their new assignments. How much is left? Are we able to still, Brian and Daniel, are you able to still help get things across the finish line? Or like, where are we at in terms of finishing up that work?
We have a few issues that still need to be completed. There were some implementation details that we missed with the spec, so we have to make some additional changes on the registry, but Aaron already started tackling that stuff. I've started working on the changes on the Rails side, and that's probably going to be done around next week. There's a merge request I'm waiting on that the registry team is working on. That's looking like it's probably going to be merged very soon. And so once that is merged, then I just need to make a couple more changes on the Rails side, and we should be good to go.
Okay. Are you planning on continuing to help with that work, or do we need to, is Aaron going to be the only person working on that from the back end, or like, where are we at as far as people go?
I will do what I can this milestone. I think there's so there's one change that I'm not sure if it's actually needed. I need to discuss that with Daniel. I'll tag Daniel on the issue. But aside from that, I think there's only one change that we need on the Rails side, and so I expect to be able to finish that. And then if there's any remaining issues, then I'll hand those over to Aaron. But I think that should be it.
Okay. Yeah, that's good news. And then I guess Daniel, for you on the front end, where does that put us in our timeline for getting Daniel what he needs to finish the front end, considering that he's, now working on a new group? Hoping that, we can work things out with your new manager so you can kind of help finish out this project, but like, what are we looking at on the front end timeline?
So I should have availability. I'm still in a holding pattern, waiting for the backend to be in place. Once it is in, assuming that there hasn't been a lot of changes from when I created the that initial implementation to create the demo, it should be fairly quickly, like within a day to get into MR.
Okay. So that's good news. If it's a small level of effort on your end, then that probably would be fine for you to finish that out, even though you're in a new group technically at this point.
Yeah, I'll be making my new manager aware that I have this obligation to finish this up.
Okay, great. Cool. Well, thanks for the updates there, and thanks for all the work. I know we've kind of had a unfortunate ending here with getting blocked by a bunch of things, but I will say that the work that we have gotten done has been really well received. Like we've got that blog post out on our integration with Cosign has been just a huge game changer in our ability to tell the story here. And I'm really looking forward to announcing the new work that we're doing with the container registry. So like take a minute to celebrate because, yes, we are blocked and yes, things are winding down, but we also accomplished a huge amount of the things that we could do that we were not blocked on. And we've added a lot of value to all of our users, right? These capabilities are going into the free tier, making this available for everybody. So this is a really big value add for anybody who's using GitLab. Cool. That's all I have. Nate, this is usually we do post this publicly, so let's just make sure to not mention any names.
Yeah, I was just
Do we want
to
to stop the recording here? Or do you want to continue? Do you feel like we can continue publicly?
I think we can discuss this on the recording. Just make sure not to name the client.
Okay.
Yeah. No, so I just wanted to pull this from Slack around the client call and how to set up self-hosted SIG store. And I just wanted to ask the question if it's worth continuing. Like, I think it's worth continuing asking for more information and details on how they've set it up so we can potentially continue investigating and looking into it slowly over the next, whatever time frame we have. But I wanted to get thoughts from everyone else. I guess, Brian.
Yeah, just to add context for anyone watching the recording, I met with a customer last week who has their own self-hosted SIG store stack running, and I discussed with them about how they got that set up. I think I learned that it did take them a lot of effort to set it up. So I think even if we went and learned a lot about even if we went and learned the specifics about how they did it, I think it's still too difficult to reproduce it for us to start supporting self-hosted SIG store. So I'm not sure that it's worth the effort to go and learn all about that.
Yeah, I guess I'm not asking that we should continue trying to set it up and doing that, but just getting as much information as we can from them. I think Rachel asked if she should go back to the customer, and I think it's a good idea just to try and get as much information as possible for future if we want to continue doing this investigation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there are some publicly available resources. Like there is a book that someone from the Six Door team wrote that's called Six Door the Hard Way, and it explains all the details about other architecture. But the thing is, there's so much complexity that I didn't want to spend the effort in reading through all of it, because it would take, you know, probably a few hours at least to read through it and understand it. It's they have a very complex architecture.
Are we
Yeah, that
able
makes
to
sense.
Are we able to just list those resources somewhere though, so for future we can read them if we want to? Do we have them listed anywhere?
Yeah, that might be a good idea. I wonder if I linked them on the issue. Let me see. Yeah, I guess the best place to put it would be to just link it in that issue about self-hosted sport.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea to me. Anything that this client is able to share publicly would be the best case scenario to just link there. And if can't be shared publicly, maybe we can at least document like on an internal note the right contacts to reach out to. I just want to make sure this isn't a place where somebody could pick it up again in the future, even though nobody is able to, we don't have any plans whatsoever to do this in the immediate term. But if there's a way to just capture this, I agree, that would be a good idea.
Yeah, so I just found an issue, and I already had a comment there with the links to the resources. So they're already there. I added a link to the agenda if you'd like to take a look.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
there
you.
was, if you look at the issue, there was a community contributor who commented also, and they said kind of the same thing that our customer did. Like the way they got Six Store set up was just doing trial and error and just trying stuff until it worked, pretty much. So far that's the only thing I've heard with people who have managed to get a self-hosted Six Store instance running.
So yeah, it sounds like, I guess what I'm hearing is that even getting the information is enough work that it's not really worth it right now. And we've already documented what we can.
Yeah, I think we really need to have like a very straightforward deployment if we want to like productize to like support it as a product. And when I was on the call discussing with the customer, I kind of mentioned the same thing. Like our support team has to be able to support it. Our development team has to be able to set it up to develop features. Our customers are going to want to be able to do it easily. And you know, with GitLab is actually like for our product, we're actually really serious about the ease of deployment. You know, we have the distribution group, and that's an entire product group dedicated just to making sure that the installation is easy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yeah, that would need to be the end state, right, for sure, if we were going to formally support it. I think there's just a question in my mind around, if Chain Guard will get there and how they get there. And, I think the more that we're able to collect the information on how to do it today and put that in one place, or even just be knowledgeable, then even if GitLab isn't the one actually making it easy, if we can help others along the way to know like what those points are, or if, for example, if somebody else were to be contracted to go solve this problem and we can give them a running start on the problem and they could see what needs to be changed in order to make it better. I don't know. That was just my thinking and collecting the knowledge, but it sounds like even the knowledge itself is really a lot to parse through, so it may just not be worth it. We already have the links to the things that we can. But it sounds like the answer to your question, Nate, might be no. It might not be worth it, in other words.
Yes, yeah, and I missed that comment with the other resources, and I think that's enough for now to keep it in that issue. So thanks, Brian.
Okay. I guess while we're all here, Brian, especially if you're willing to entertain me for a minute, it'd be helpful for me personally just to better understand the difference between the CI component catalog and what we're doing today with Cosign, and what the differences are specifically in terms of security for signing the artifact. Is that something that you understand? And sorry to put you on the spot here with no notice. I know I didn't add this to the agenda ahead of time, but would you mind explaining what you know about that, just to help me better understand the difference between those two approaches?
Yeah, sure. So, really, with our current CI system, it has a lot of flexibility, and I think there's too many different ways for a developer to influence a job that you can't exactly have reproducible builds with the CI system that we currently have. They can extend the job YAML and change aspects of the job that they're not supposed to be able to that they're not supposed to be able to. They can edit the CI variables, and I think the CI variables is probably the biggest thing, because those can change on every single build, and we don't record them in the attestation. Like, we don't record what the actual values are because they might have secrets. So there's no way to know if some aspect of the build was changed based on the CI variables. And I don't know if the CI catalog would fix this. It depends on how it's designed. But if we compare to GitHub Actions, the way GitHub Actions makes you declare specific input arguments. And so we would have to have a system like that where the only way that you're able to change the behavior of the CI job or the build is to change the arguments, and arguments have to be recorded explicitly in the attestation. And that way you essentially you have to have a system where the attestation has all the details that you need to be able to reproduce the build. And right now, we don't have that because there's all these different ways that you might be able to influence the build without that thing being recorded in the attestation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess I have two follow-up questions to this. If you did go down this route, could you send in, like, what if you needed a secret inside of one of these components? Would you send that secret in as an input argument, which would then be exposed in the attestation, or how would you handle that? That's the first question.
Right. I'm not totally sure about that. Like I think one way that you could do it is you require that secret to be stored somewhere in like a KMS or You store that secret in some sort of versioned system. And then instead of passing in the secret, you pass in a reference to that secret. So you know what secret it is and what version it is. And that way you don't actually expose the secret, but you know which secret was used for the build. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, that does make sense. So, and then I assume you would go to the KMS and ask what was the secret at this point in time. Like there would have to be a time element to it, right? Because the secret potentially could be changed.
Right.
Okay.
That's why it has to be version.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So then
Yeah.
I guess as a follow-up question, I don't know very much about what we support with our API, but I wonder whether you could do the same thing for CI variables, where you could ask GitLab what was the CI variable at this point in time, and that way you would not be exposing it in the actual attestation directly, but if you wanted to verify or reproduce the build, you could go back and ask GitLab what was the CI variable at this point in time or version, right? For this particular version of the variable when it was run.
Yeah. If we recorded version history for the secrets, that would work. The problem is that right now we don't do that. So
Okay.
we only have the current state of the CI variable. We don't have historical data. I do know that the pipeline security group is working on secrets management, so maybe it's worth a conversation with them about how like the secret management systems that they're developing might be able to tie into this.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Or they could just add in versioning to the CI variables. Might be a
Yeah,
potential solution as well.
yeah. It's a bit easier said than done, but
Could you may not know this is asking a lot, but I wonder if we store the last modified date for the CI variables. And if you could say, this wouldn't solve it for all attestations, but you could at least say
you could tell if it's been changed since
if
the
it's
last
been,
build.
yeah, and if it has not been changed, then the build would be reproducible. And of course, if it has been changed, then the build would not be reproducible.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not familiar with how those are stored, so I can't say offhand if
Okay, no, that answers it for me. Thank you for clearing that up.
We will have that through audit events, won't we? The last modified date.
Yeah, we would, right? I think you're right, we would. So if a user was really determined, they could triangulate between audit events, CI variables, and the attestation to reproduce builds for which the CI variables had not been modified.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. That was kind of what I was thinking, but thanks for confirming that.
it doesn't look like we have timestamps. Like I just checked the table and there's no updated at column, so I don't think we recorded the timestamps when those change.
So they would have to go to the audit log to get it.
Right.
Okay. That answers my questions then. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, we are at time. Is there anything else to discuss? All right, well, thanks everyone. I think we'll keep the meeting on the calendar for now, just because there are a few outstanding items that we're working through, but once we're done, we can cancel this recurring meeting for sure, and we may or may not even need it the next couple weeks. So, all right, well, thanks everybody. Have a great day.
Gotcha.